We are back with another episode of the Mental Game Podcast. We are super excited to have you guys here for another episode discussing mental health awareness for student athletes. We've got a great guest today. We're super excited to have him on the show. He's a teammate of ours. He's a captain on our team. So we're looking forward to having him. He's very wise. I think he's got a lot of insight that we're excited to discuss, and I think we're going to have some important conversations. We're just going to continue to change the narrative about mental health awareness in the athletic community and hope to focus that change together. Before we get into that, we got some big news. As we mentioned earlier in the season, we're going to host a mental health panel for the student athletes on the Minot State campus. That is now scheduled to go. We're going to be doing that on April 26th. It is a Tuesday. That day, the Minot State softball team has a doubleheader, I believe, against Minnesota State Crookston. We're going to speak a little bit in between the doubleheaders, just kind of about that panel, and then we encourage all student athletes on campus to come to Alshire Theater that night at 7 p.m. for the panel. If you can't come, we will record it just like we do all of our podcasts. What that panel is going to entail is Troy and I will host it like we do the regular podcast, and then we are going to have two student athletes on campus, Cody Dwyer and Zoya Robbins, kind of tell their stories about their experiences with mental health awareness and just mental health as athletes at Minot State. And then following their stories, we're going to have a panel of experienced speakers relating to the topic, some of which you guys have seen on our past episodes. We will have Coach Merkin back on the panel. Dr. Mattern will be back on the panel. We'll be adding in one of the two counselors on campus, and then we're still trying to finalize the last two or three that'll be joining that panel. So for those of you who are interested, we encourage you to come to Alshire Theater at 7 p.m. that night on April 26th, and also go to those two softball doubleheader games if you can. And then we have some other big news, Troy. We sent in our podcast to the Eric Severides Award for a couple categories, and we found out the other day that we won the category for Best Series for our podcast. Troy, you want to tell them a little bit about what the Eric Severide Awards are?
Yeah, so an Eric Severide Award is a Midwest competition between the multiple states with universities. So us, Minnesota states, or like universities like the University of Minnesota, Duluth, Crookston, are all there, as well as down in Nebraska. Severide was born in North Dakota, went to the University of Minnesota, was more known for his CBC radio and television, but these awards are a pretty big deal in journalism, and we're very honored to win one.
Yeah, it's super exciting. A lot of our classmates and peers are going to the actual conference this week, so good luck to all of them. We have a couple other peers who put in some of their work, and one of our friends also got his podcast recognized as well, so that's super awesome. We're super excited for that news, and we're happy that the conversation continues to get out there, and we're looking forward to continue to spread the awareness and make that change. Well, without further ado, we're going to introduce our guest for today. As I mentioned, he's captain of the team, Mr. Wise Guy. Everyone pauses when he starts to talk because he really has things settled down. We're super excited to have him. Safety for the football team, Isaiah Bigby. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate all the kind words. It's just crazy. But yeah, I appreciate being here. I always thought about it for a while. I was going to ask Philip, can I be on the show? But, he asked me, so it kind of worked out.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, very well spoken, and we're looking forward to kind of bouncing some ideas off you, learning from your experiences. You're a little bit different than some of the other athletes we've had on here with the experience that we're going to talk about today, so we're excited to get into that. With that being said, you had a pretty tough knee injury this year in the fall, pretty major one, and starter on the team. It's tough to lose you 2 games into the season?
Yeah, four technically, yeah.
So right into the thick of things. It's unfortunate. So we kind of want to talk to you about your mental health experiences with that injury. We're going to kind of kick it off with talk about how it impacted your mental health just losing a season.
It's definitely different. Coming in, first off coming in like having COVID, so then I get an extra year, and then playing this year thinking, all right, I got an extra year to figure things out, and they take it away. And then I got granted my medical, I think like 2 weeks ago. But up until that point, I was like, shoot, I might lose a year. It's a possibility. So it definitely runs through your head, how do I accomplish what I wanted to in 4 years and 3 years? So, it's different for sure. And I would say then having to sit there and, watch your teammates go to war and then watch your teammates play and, almost feel helpless. And, you can only help in so many ways. I can turn to a coach and, try to help everybody, but I feel like I'm not doing my, 111 to the team type stuff. And, it was definitely different, losing a year. So
during that experience, kind of watching from the sideline, did you feel you could go to, whether it's the teammates or the coaches, and just kind of talk about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I really could. I feel like a lot of times I didn't though, just because like I didn't want to make it about me. You know, like it's a team game, so like trying to make sure the team's still on the up and up, our attitudes are right. So I didn't want to like bring somebody else down, telling them like, hey, like like I really feel like I'm not a part of this right now, or I just try to include myself and make myself a part of something. So.
What are some of those outlets that you did to help yourself feel like you were still a part of the team despite not being on the field?
Oh, like little simple things like pre-practice. Like I was a DB at the time, so like just making sure like the DBs are out 10 minutes before, getting our little pre-practice stuff done, so we don't got to do it during practice. Free up some time during Indy to do something else. I was signaling at games. Like that was a new thing for me. I've never signaled, so doing live signaling at a headset. So there'd be sometimes like I'm doing stuff like that, and then eventually, before I went home for surgery, I got to the point where I was almost breaking down film with coaches and stuff. So going through that stuff. So just trying to stay like a part of the team and trying to help the progression upwards, and not just being somebody who's just there. Like I'm at practice sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, I can definitely relate a little bit. When I hurt my hamstring, I don't even know how many years ago that was, 2 or 3 years ago. I remember it was just like you're just kind of there. You don't get to go on the road trips anymore. You're just kind of hanging out, and you aren't really doing anything in practice. If you are, you're kind of helping the coaches out, but you're not. You want to be out there on the field, so it's definitely tough, and it's awesome that you're able to find that little outlet.
And I would say I got lucky, actually. I was still able to travel.
Mm-hmm. So when I got hurt, they still traveled me, so
yeah,
I
still got to
kind
travel.
of lucky like that too.
So I would say that helped. Being around the guys helped a lot, just traveling and stuff. But I couldn't imagine what it would be like kind of just being there on Saturday. Like, yeah, I'm at home. Like, I think it would probably mess me up a little bit. But, I'm kind of happy I got to travel, though.
Yeah,
Eased it out.
So knee injuries obviously aren't a quick recovery. It's about a year depending on the knee injury, give or take. Kind of talk about the grind of going through the recovery, as well as like you want results, you want to be results driven, but sometimes those results aren't going to come through that recovery. Kind of talk about how that's affected you mentally and just continue to go through that recovery.
So I would say the first thing my trainer told me when I got home, the biggest thing was I remember I was telling him, well, I'm just going to grind it out. And he was like, well, instead of grinding, like let's sculpt. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I mean, you take a rock and you grind it down and you're left with dust. And like, truly, we can't do anything with dust. Dust is sand. We just put it in our front yards and stuff. It's good for stuff like that. But as far as the use, it had no use. So he was saying, what we're going to do is we're going to sculpt. We're going to learn how to keep what we want and take away what we don't want and be very, like, precise on what we want to do. So then we're left with whatever masterpiece we want. So I would say that was probably the biggest thing, realizing that some days, like, like your brain's telling your body, like, hey, like, straighten your leg. But your body's like, I can't, like, it's not going. So I think in those days, it's like realizing, like, okay, like, go as hard as I can. If I can't go any more, then stop. Come back the next day with the same intensity that I had the day before. And you just keep slowly pushing it, gaining momentum. And, it's definitely a challenge, though. I would say, like, that first, like, week after, like, post-op, I was sitting there like, man, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to, like, use my leg again. Like, because it just feels like you're, like, rebuilding all the neurological chains that you had before when you were a kid, and you're trying to build them again at 20. And it's definitely different, but like I said, like day by day, like our trainer Jody laughs at me every day because she's like how many weeks out are you, or how many months out? And I'm like, I'm 146 days. Like I know my day count because it's a day by day process for me. Like one day at a time, move to the next, then the next. But folks are almost in front of us now.
So you're not the only athlete on the team who's going through some knee recovery, including even we've had Wax who has already gone through it. I've seen you talking to him. How has that been, going through the recovery process, having others who have either been through it or are currently going through the recovery as well?
When it comes to like knees and stuff, that's the godfather. Like Wax knows pretty much everything, I would say. So like I always turn to him like whenever I need help. Like I'm going through something, I'm like, hey, I'm having this pain right here. Like, what does that mean? He's like, well, if it's not chronic, it means this. If it's chronic, it means that. So like, he's been great. Like, I honestly feel like between him and one of our teammates, Cam Jones, his mom's one of my PTs. Between them two, like, I just go and ask a question and they answer me. And I really feel like I would say I'm ahead of schedule. That's like my doctor would say right now. But I feel like I'm there because of those two especially. Like, they're just really good at being able to lean on and ask questions. And like, yeah, and then I try to do the same thing for the other. We have two more kids who had ACLs, Joma and Jake. So I try to make sure whatever I learn, I pass on to them immediately. Mm-hmm. So like they could be just as smooth as I am right now. So
yeah, and I'm sure they love that wealth of knowledge because, I mean, Jake's not as close with Wax as you are, so he might not feel comfortable asking those questions where you feel comfortable asking those questions. So obviously you're not 100% back, but as it comes to getting back on that field in the fall and playing, do you think there's going to be a mental block in terms of just the confidence? I know you talked about with Wax when you were doing some of your testing, like you think you could have jumped this far, but you kind of held yourself back, those type of things.
And it's like, that's one of the big things I feel like, I would say like, right now I'm in that phase where I feel like I want to kind of hold myself back because I've been told like if I go too hard right now, I can mess something up. But I don't know, I've been blessed to be able to grow up where like I've had the mentality where if I get the green light, I get the green light. So I remember telling Jody, like, when I do this broad jump, like, I'm just gonna jump. Like, and she's like, no, don't like jump. Like, hold back a little bit. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to hold back a little bit, not go too crazy. Because if she didn't say it to me, I would have went 100% and jumped. Because, like, I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of wired that way, which is like, that's a blessing in itself. Because I guess not a lot of people are wired that way. So I guess I'm lucky on that aspect. But definitely going back to the season, like little things, like I'll be sitting in my room and I'll be like, man, like if I get a block to me, am I gonna be able to spill it? Like, am I gonna trust my leg to spill it? I think the biggest thing is like when you have those doubts, instead of like we're always taught to like run away from the doubt or like not think about it, instead to like unpack it and like take the doubt for what it is. So like I'm worried about if I'm gonna be able to do that, and we're like, why? Why are you worried about that? Well, because I feel like my knee's gonna give out because it's in like a compromised position. So then we take that information and we learn how to create some type of concrete goal or like objective to where when you feel comfortable there. So now instead of when that doubt creeps into your mind, it's more of a reminder of what I need to do so it doesn't happen versus worrying about it and stressing about it. So
yeah. So as an athlete who's going through a major injury, what is your advice for other athletes who obviously sports, that's how the game is, people are going to get injured. What is your advice for other athletes as they go through the mental aspect of the recovery plus the physical aspect? I
would say first, always realize that it could be 100% worse. Like for me, my thing was it was clean ACL. I remember looking at Wax and Wax was like, I had ACL, meniscus, a little bit of MCL. I'm like that's different. So like realize that no matter how bad it is, it's always worse. It could always be worse. And then, like I said earlier, like once we start day one, keep that same day one intensity and drive and effort through however long your process is, and the results will take care of themselves.
No, that's awesome advice. I mean, what makes us our athletes is playing the games, and then when it's taken away from you, it's definitely going to, not obviously it gives a physical toll on you, but the mental toll is often not talked about. So we appreciate you coming and speaking in on that. We want to change it a little bit here, and we're going to kind of bring up some stuff that we've talked about on other episodes with some of our past guests. We kind of first want to just talk to you. When you hear mental toughness versus mental health, what's your point of view? What's your thought process?
I feel like my thought process is that it's like kind of how people have pain tolerance. Like everybody's mental health and mental toughness is going to border. Like some people have a really high ceiling before they get to the point where it's like they might crack, and some people have a lower ceiling, and nothing's wrong with either one. They both have their downs and like positives and negatives to each. And I feel like everybody's situation is different, so it's really hard to try to box everybody into one little category and be like, okay, like you should be fine with this and not fine with this. Well, some people aren't wired to be fine with that. Some people are. So I feel like that's kind of where I stand on that. Like everybody's a little different. So we can't look at one kid and be like, you got to be mentally tougher, because it's like maybe that's not them. Like it's okay. Like they need to find a different way to kind of unpack things and address things in different ways. So
yeah, we've talked about in the past with athletes, a part of mental toughness, in our opinion, is like admitting that maybe my mental health isn't where I want it to be, because that's hard to do. Admitting like you can see a physical injury. It's hard to admit that something's wrong mentally.
And that's a tough one. Like especially like I would say before I got hurt, just kind of like once you get caught in this little loop and you feel like you don't have a break and you're just like kind of running and running and running. The thing with our society is we kind of group that in and be like, oh, that means you're working hard. And like yeah, like that's cool and all, but I also need time to like decompress. I need time to do things else. I need time to relax. I shouldn't feel like I'm always ripping and running and stressed out because I'm ripping and running. Like you got to find a happy medium. And that's why I feel like it's a really thin line you walk when you're talking like mental health and stuff, because it's like, man, like adding one more thing or taking one more thing away could be the difference between somebody really cracking and not cracking. So like it's tough for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember where I saw, but it was kind of a quote to the point where it's like, it is still productive to rest. Like there is a productive part of resting if you do it in a manner that is going to continue the grind or the progress or wherever you're going. So definitely got to take rest into account.
And I would say like I remember my youth pastor would always say, he'd be like, a flower only grows at night. Like if you watch a flower, like it doesn't grow during the daytime. If you time-lapse a flower, there's no growth during the day. At nighttime is when it grows, because it's something you need rest. Your body needs rest. Like you ever wake up, like you have practice, you wake up the next day and your body hurts, or you're sleeping and your body's running this diagnostic, making sure you're good, and it notices something's wrong, so you wake up sore. But it's like your body needs time to rest to recuperate. And I think a lot of times in our society, we equate not recuperating with like working the right way, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely value in rest, and it's important, especially as athletes. Our bodies get beat up constantly.
Yeah, over and over. Like it's a nonstop grind, like we said, and it's important to take that rest and take that time to get your mental side healthy too.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to see the coaches kind of starting to understand that. Like we had our leadership council meeting with Coach A the other day, and he was talking about different styles of running practice to allow that rest for the athletes, and like him going out there and offering to us, hey, you've seen your different ways of running a practice. What do you think is going to be the best to give you guys the rest you need to feel fresh, but we still do the productive things?
And when we had that talk, I like how he brought up what they do at Wayne, I believe it was, where they get Thursday off. And the guy's like, we don't have to do anything Thursday. It's like a big mental day for them. Like that's something that I'd never thought about before.
Yeah.
Or when we read the All Blacks, the chapter about how their schedule is they get Wednesdays off, which is weird, like in the middle of the week. So
it's just, and like even simple things, like I know Heilman gives us that during the season, that flexibility to lift when we can fit it into our schedule, so we do sleep. Like I never really took any value to it until like now, because this is my first actual spring. So like I'm sitting there like today, I'm like, man, like we got to do it 1 week. This is start the second week, and I'm waking up today and I'm like, I'm kind of tired. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm kind of tired. So like it's definitely different. Like that Monday, I was like, I don't like weights is gonna be a struggle. Like so like coming into the season, you're like, oh, like I'm gonna go lift at 10 because I don't have anything to do at 10 and work through my schedule and wake up at 8:39 versus waking up at 4:30. So even that, like that's pretty big too. And it's good that coaches are being more flexible about it.
Yeah, because 10 years ago, it was. I don't care if it's your season or off season. You're up at 6 a.m.
It was maybe 5 years ago. Like when I first got to college, that's how it was. We worked out 6 the redshirts lift, and 7 and 8 the straddle lift.
Yeah,
so
it's cool. It's cool to see them start to see that flexibility and work with the athletes, because we're fortunate enough to have that. But there's places around the country that aren't.
I think that's same. And I would say it's like even you look at the $1 million facilities that Division I's have, like. Almost all of them have a little rest thing, like where you're like a sleep pod, or like maybe their locker reclines back. Like to us, it's a subtle thing, but I would almost like get like bet, like if I had money to bet off. I'm a betting man, but if I had to bet, I'm pretty sure they put that in there for some type of functionality. Like, okay, we need you to get some type of rest, and if you can't go home, rest here at least, because they understand how big rest is to athletes' performance. So
what is it? Is LSU their lockers have the pods? I think.
I think a few more have added since LSU. They were the first ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, but like how many times do we walk in the locker room and Doty's sleeping on the couch?
Every day.
Like
every single day.
It's real though.
Yeah,
it is real.
Because like not every athlete has the car to get home so class is done. If I gotta wait in the locker room until my ride's done, like.
Yeah, I'm on campus, and there's some days where I'm like, I don't know if I want to walk to my dorm and then come back to class. I might just park it in the locker room today. And it's only 30 minutes in between, but you got to think, like, I got to commute back, got to lay down. I'm really only getting like a 10-minute nap here. So, like, probably get like 20 if I just stay here.
Yeah, and then Doty does it every day. It's like clockwork.
I've done it before, too.
We're fortunate enough to have big couches in there to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Comfy ones. Not everyone's got that same.
Red one's my favorite.
The red one's your favorite.
Red one is nice to sink into it.
Yeah.
All right. As we continue on, I want to talk just a little bit more. As you've been in college, this is your third year here at Minot State.
Yeah.
What have you learned or grown from in terms of the mental health aspect?
I've learned to, like you guys talked about, like stop, sometimes rest. Because there's a lot of times when I first got here, I was just always going and going and going and going and going. Mm-hmm. And I really, I didn't hit a wall, but I really realized, sometimes, you have to slow down. Because if you just keep going and going and going, you're just going to grind yourself down. And, you won't get the same amount of stuff that you need. So I would say probably that, and then growing in just, more maturity, learning how to, deal with situations and, not let a little thing become a big thing, that's probably one of the bigger things, because you take the little things, they add up, and before you know it, you're stressed. So just dealing with each situation before they become problems.
I like that. We want to run a couple camps changes by you that we've discussed with some of our other guests. First off, did you know you could go to Dr. Madden for mental health?
No, I wasn't aware, honestly.
Yeah,
No idea.
so
neither were
we had no idea until Matter had reached out to us and about being on the podcast, and we learned through Jody that not only is she like our physical doctor, but you could go to Matter for the same if you needed the mental health stuff for the same. So those are some things that one of the things we came up with is at the beginning of right before fall camp we have our the counselors come in and talk and I don't know about you, but I'd never seen them before a day in my life before they walked in that building.
Oh, yeah,
but
never.
Almost anyone on the team, almost all 400 athletes on campus know who Dr. Mattern is. So we've talked about having the idea of going to our athletic director and be like, hey, instead of having the counselors come in, let's have Mattern come in, a face that most of the teams would be more comfortable with talking to and then understanding I can come to them, which... Yeah.
And I would say that's it's just funny, the stigma from high school to college. In high school, you're I don't want to go to the doctor, I don't want to go to their PT. And I sometimes forget that Mattern's on campus. I totally forget until I had an ACL. She was like, oh, well, we'll see Mattern tomorrow. I'm I'm going to Trinity. She's like, no, I'm just going to walk over to Swain. And I'm like, oh, Mattern's here. So that's even bigger for the mental health aspect. Because I know a lot of people struggle with it. I know some people, they go down to Laura sometimes, but it'd probably be nice to talk to somebody who's around sports. Because it's a different type of realm that you're in.
And she seemed very open to after seeing everybody on a Monday, to sit down for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and talk to you about everything. She seemed very, very interested and kind of willing to do it more often.
And I feel that's the biggest thing. Sometimes it's just getting it off your chest. It's not even that you need an instant solution. Sometimes you just need to get it off your chest.
You just need to vent sometimes.
Yeah, you just need it out your body.
Yeah, sometimes it's just you just need someone to listen. They don't have to always have the answers, but just having someone who can let you get your ideas out there, then it's off your chest. They've heard it. They might not know what to do, but they've acknowledged that it's important to you. It'll be a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another big one that we've talked about is, so we do the Title IX training every year.
Right.
And it's required for all of us athletes to do before there's a hold on your account if you don't do it type things.
Yeah.
So we've discussed kind of a similar type training for our coaches as they get, whether it's they're hired or they do a new training every year type thing where it's hey, here's some tips and some ideas on here's how you should help your different athletes through mental health awareness.
Yeah, I like that because I was talking to somebody about it today. Somebody at practice wasn't having the best day, and I remember I looked over to one of the hurt guys and was he's probably they're what's wrong? And I'm well, 90% of the time when somebody's struggling on the field, they're struggling off the field, and it's normally not in a classroom. It's normally mentally, something's wrong with their mental health, and that's going to leak onto the field. And I think as a coach, it's something you really have to realize if I'm not getting my best production out of an athlete, I got to assess what's going on and why and figure out how I can help and be that shoulder that they may need. So
yeah, we've talked about on past episodes you see how good athletes can perform when they're not at their best. Imagine how much you can get out of them when they truly feel their best and they have that comfortability of if something's wrong, I know I can get the help I need.
Yeah.
And then kind of on the same idea, we talked about having, as they go through the hiring process, talking to coaches, hey, how would you handle these situations, or would you be open to learning what to do in these type of situations? Those are just some things that we've discussed.
Yeah, that's big. I like that right there.
All right, well, before we get out of here, we kind of want to reflect. What are your thoughts on kind of where we can go from here in terms of just continuing to change the narrative, keep that conversation going,
as
get rid of that stigma?
As a community, as or as us,
however you want. Just however you want, both.
I feel as a community, we got to start being as athletes, just the world period. We got to start being more empathetic for people and understanding understand somebody else's struggles and understand what's going on. A lot of people, they keep in a lot of stuff. They have a lot of stuff that they keep inside. And they just don't. They never really let it out because they feel if they do, they'll be considered weak or emotional and all type of other stuff. And I feel honestly, this is me personally, I feel some of the greatest athletes perform better when emotions are involved. It gives you extra driving force. It gives you something to lean on and push on. And I feel emotions are necessary for sports, and but you have to learn how to deal with them. And I think a lot of times we don't know how to deal with them. So we need to biggest push in the community, I would say, is just being more positive about mental health. Because right now you say mental health and everybody's don't want to hear about mental health. That's weak. But mental health is huge. You get a lot of athletes who either walk away or take breaks from the game. I think honestly Calvin really took one. Was it last season?
Yeah.
Like, and then he came out and he had the gambling problem now, but it's like he probably had something else leading up to that.
Yeah.
And like he had to take a break because he has so much going on. And from the outside looking in, you're like, well, I would never step away if I'm making X millions amount of dollars. But it's like you can't put a price tag on your mental health.
Yeah,
there is no price tag for that. Like you can't be at war with yourself and at peace with the world. Like it just doesn't work like that. But you can be at peace with yourself and war with the world. So I feel like that's one of the big like keys we have to work on.
Yeah, there was the Ohio State. He was a guard or a center who stepped away earlier this semester.
He was projected draft pick, right? Like
he was a 5-star prospect out of high school. Like obviously very talented on the football field, but had his own struggles off the football field, and it was to the point where he needed to step away from the game. And he even had mentioned that he like spoke with Ryan Day, their head coach, on like what to do, and Ryan Day fortunately was able to help him out, which is awesome. But like you said, if you're not at peace with yourself, it's hard to be able to perform on that field.
And that's like the biggest thing. Like, I don't have to understand why you stepped away. That's not for my job. My job is to like help you. Like, well, you need help. I'm not asking for understanding because I don't need to understand your thoughts. You don't have to understand my thoughts. But like, we do need to help each other though. Like, so like him walking away to me is the same as somebody walking away who had nothing after football. Like it's the same because now you're at peace with your own mental health. So that's the biggest piece.
At the end of the day, there's more to life than football.
It always stops.
Yeah, football's going to stop. You only get a certain number of snaps in football.
Yeah.
And then you're done. But life's going to keep going on. So you got to view what's more important in the long run.
Exactly. And I think that's a lot of times people forget. Like the game stopped, especially football. Like I think it's one of the shortest like professional career expectancy.
Yeah, I think it's 3 years.
Average is 3 years, yeah.
And like if you want pension is like 7. And like if we're looking at 7's still kind of short. I mean, basketball players play 10 years.
Yeah.
Baseball players play 10 years. So like the game stops. And at 7 years, let's say you get drafted at 22, 29, you're done with football.
You got a lot ahead of you.
You got like more than like almost 3/4 of your life left. Like just a little under that. So like you gotta be at peace with yourself, and if you're gonna live that. So.
Well, before we get out of here, do you have any last thoughts?
No, I just appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on here as we continue to change that narrative. We want our end goal is to make mental health as important as physical health in the sporting community because they are one and the same in terms of getting the most out of your athletes and getting the most out of, as you said, your life after the athletics. Appreciate you coming on the show. We look forward to all of you tuning in, and we hope all of you student athletes who are available and can come to the mental health panel on April 26th at Alshire Theater are welcome. And if you can, we hope you tune in after the live recording. Thank you very much. Roll Beavs.
Roll Bees.
Roll Bees.